What's up, guys? It's the director. It's time to talk abilities again. If you guys haven't seen my last video where I break down exactly how abilities work, who can get what ability, how to prepare for which abilities you're targeting, take a look at my last video. I think it's one of my best as far as information is concerned, because a lot of people are confused on that aspect, and we paved the road for you guys to make it easier to understand. In this video, however, I'm going to be going over some of the best abilities I feel are available right now. Some of them are a little harder to achieve than others, but some of them are truly like game breaking. So I feel it's important to bring that information forward and show you guys which ones you might want to target and which players are eligible for those abilities. Let's get going. Let's start with pass. Let's start with quarterback. We'll break this down by elite. Let's start with pass, lead, elite. Let's go over here to the descriptions. All right, here it is. Pass lead elite, extended precision passing via directional input while throwing on all throws except high and low. So I'm using a version of this ability on Phillip Rivers called pocket lead. It's basically the same thing, but it only works when you're standing in the pocket. Now, from what I can tell, I've got some experience using this ability. Being able to lead your receivers with a little bit more distance is definitely really nice, because it can be the difference between being open or being covered. Sometimes I could use that in the red zone quite a bit. I've seen a lot of success with extended precision on directional throws when you're inputting, when you have the controller out and you're like, okay, I needed to throw it a little bit further to the right or left in order to make that pass. That is absolutely huge. So pass lead elite, whereas you can pretty much extend those throws from anywhere you're standing, not just in the pocket. That's only available to Elway and Mahomes. It is also available to any field general quarterback that's tier 2, which again, that's 85 overall and up. So that is something I think you can definitely target for your quarterbacks. Next up, let's take a look at Dashing Deadeye. Right here, Dashing Deadeye. Perfect passing accuracy when throwing on the run, when outside the pocket, excluding high and low throws or under pressure or cross body. Now, there's a lot of ors in there, but being able to throw on the run with perfect accuracy in a specific situation can be pretty glitchy, and we see that a lot with people that enjoy playing with like a Michael Vick last season. Kind of brings some of that comfort back home in Madden 20, and let's be honest, having perfect passing accuracy while on the run is pretty nice. That currently is only available to Mahomes and Russell Wilson. Next up is Inside Deadeye. Perfect passing accuracy on all throws except high and low when throwing to receivers inside the numbers. So a lot of guys, I would say maybe new Madden players, they like to make their reads inside the numbers because it's easier to see receivers that are within that field of view. The outside plays, I think, are going to come to fruition a lot more this year because receivers actually stay in bounds. But for those guys that like making those inside passes, that can be really nice knowing you can rely on the accuracy of those passes. I also have some experience with this ability on Phillip Rivers. It's actually really nice being able to throw accurately inside the numbers, and this is a good example of being able to combine different abilities to really scheme around what you want to do. So I'm able to pocket lead inside the numbers very accurately with both of these abilities combined. So being able to throw accurately and extend the direction of where my wide receiver is going is definitely a really nice advantage. One that, is exclusive to just a few quarterbacks. So Inside Deadeye is currently available to all tier 1 field general quarterbacks, and that's all quarterbacks 80 overall and up. And that's just kind of, there's a lot of different guys there. You got to go take a look at the quarterbacks that fall under that archetype. Next up, let's take a look at Conductor. You guys know what Conductor is. Quarterback makes all pre-play adjustments twice as fast, excluding audibles. Conductor is something people have been relying on for a long time. It's because you're able to make several adjustments before getting to the line, and that can be the difference between getting the snap off and not getting the snap off sometimes, or keeping the pace of your offense. So I think that's one people are familiar with. And it's definitely highly coveted. Currently, the only quarterbacks in the game right now that you can get Conductor on are field general quarterbacks that are tier 2 or higher with 88 awareness. And I've already found these guys. They are Brady, Rivers, and Breeze. I do not have it on my Philip Rivers before you ask. I actually did like the pocket lead quite a bit, but I think eventually when 1,000 training isn't so expensive, I'll give it a shot. Next up, we have Last Ditch, can throw the ball while being sacked by a defender. Now, that's pretty situational, but some dudes really wait till the last second to make their reads and make their passes. Some guys might actually find that pretty glitchy in their own. It adds a little bit of extra time for you to make your read and a little bit of extra time in the pocket. If you literally, all you need, I've heard this 1,000 times, oh man, one more second and he would have been open. Maybe now you can wait that extra second because you can make that pass while getting sacked, which is kind of ridiculous to me. And if you guys have experience with barely, getting the pass off or not getting the pass off, I think this would be a nice ability. Currently, the only quarterback that can get it is Patrick Mahomes, and he's got some really nice ones. I don't know if Last Ditch is one of those that you want to target, but he's definitely a nice quarterback to add that sort of thing to the Last Ditch because he can be very mobile. Now, next up is going to be Identifier. Highlights the defender being actively controlled by your opponent. Again, everybody should know what Identifier is. There's actually so many quarterbacks that fall into this category that I didn't feel like I needed to go tell you which ones they were, but basically any 80 overall and up field general quarterback that's been powered up can get it. Improviser quarterbacks, your Russell Wilsons, your Patrick Mahomes, any of them can get it at 85 plus overall, which is tier 2. And they also have to have 90 awareness. Scramblers, I guess there's not really any right now anyway, but they technically can't get it until 90 overall with 95 awareness. So there's a lot to take a look in there, but check on the quarterback that you're using, make sure that they're the correct archetype, and chances are you'll be able to get Identifier on them. Now, this ability isn't currently available to any quarterback in the game, but I thought I'd bring it up anyway. It's something to kind of keep your eye out for. One of the most overpowered abilities we saw for the quarterbacks as far as the early playing or whatever goes is Protected. Offensive line gives the quarterback more time in the pocket on all engaged pass blocks. That can get pretty scary pretty fast. So if you've got a lot of extra time in the pocket, which right now, it's definitely a huge advantage. You can only get this with field general quarterbacks at 95 overall plus. So it's going to be a while till we see that come. But until then, that's something to keep an eye out for. That's pretty nice. Next up, let's move over to the halfbacks, starting with probably my favorite ability in the game right now, Evasive. Evasive. Ball carriers with this ability have faster juke and spin animations. You guys know exactly how deadly that can be. There is a running back in the game of the name of Marcus Allen who does get evasive right now, and it is absolutely game-changing. I'm struggling myself whether or not to go pick him up because I may wait for another running back that I enjoy more than Marcus Allen. Nothing against the Raiders, but everything against the Raiders. But that is absolutely a huge game-changing ability at this stage in Madden. Being able to juke and spin pretty freaking crazy fast is going to give you a huge advantage in the game. Now, Marcus Allen's the only running back in the game right now that can get that ability, but there are versions of that you can get. Let's say Jukebox. Everybody knows Jukebox. I've been talking about Jukebox for a while. Excels at jukes, a special move when carrying the ball. Now, that is something I tested quite a bit with Belvin Gordon. He is so good in regs because of Jukebox. There is currently only 2 players in the game that can get that, and that's going to be Tariq Cohen. The other move is Spin Cycle. It's pretty much like how spinning was last season in Madden 19. It's pretty OP. You can get that on Marcus Allen, but I would say get evasive on Marcus Allen and don't get Spin Cycle right now because there's no point in doing that at this time. Next up is Armbar. Excels at the stiff arm special move when carrying the ball. Now, there's only one player in the whole game that can get Armbar right now, and that is Jim Brown. It's kind of baked into that card. I don't think there's a reason he should have that as far as his attributes. I think it's just a special card, but my God, you guys test out Armbar. You can tell me and I can tell you that it is absolutely overpowered. Literally just run into their line, smash the stiff arm button, A in the terms of Xbox, and you can hit 3, 4, sometimes 5 yards with ease every single play. I would say it's probably a little bit broken, But with Jim Brown being the only player that can get it right now, I'm not too worried about it. But once we start seeing guys with like 85 plus speed with that ability, it's going to get a little insane. Now, if you guys are wondering when is the earliest new halfback going to come out that can get armbar, you're probably going to be targeting a power halfback archetype that's tier 2. So again, that's an 85 plus back with 90 stamina or better. Okay, so it has to meet both those criteria. It has to be 85 plus, and they have to have 90 stamina or better. Next up is Balance Beam. It's basically Never Stumble from last season. It comes in handy. It was kind of like the generic. That's what you put on every halfback in Madden 19 and Madden 20. I actually wasn't able to find in this document Balance Beam, so I'm unsure of what it takes to get that on any card, but keep an eye out for it. If you guys see, the requirements for Balance Beam, let me know. Next up is Pin and Pull. These actually all fall under very similar categories. So you got pin and pull, inside zone, outside zone. This all depends on the kind of running game that you like to use. I like running outside quite a bit, so either outside zone or pin and pull would work very well for me. But basically, it helps you excel at certain kind of run play. So toss, pitch, and counter plays would be for pin and pull. And then outside, obviously, be outside plays. And then inside, obviously, inside plays. I chose pin and pull because a lot of people like to run outside, pitches, tosses. Even counter plays can be very nice if you've got pin and pull. But the only player that can get it right now is Marcus Allen. I'm sure more will come in the future, but it's definitely one to kind of keep your eye out for. Next up, let's move on to the wide receivers. Let's start with Route Technician. Route Technician has a lot of different wide receivers that can get it at this point. Not all of them, but there's a little handful. Basically, it says, excels at getting open on last cut move of any route unless covered by a defender with cut move abilities. So basically, your route running is crisp, and you want it to be as crisp as possible. You combine wide receivers that have Route Technician with quarterbacks that have like pass lead. All of a sudden, you're throwing to wide receivers, leading them into a pass, and they're making crisper cuts. In my mind, that's a huge win. The wide receivers that can get Route Technician at this point are Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, Adam Thielen, Julian Edelman, Keenan Allen, T.Y. Hilton, Amari Cooper, Antonio Brown, Marvin Harrison, and Jerry Rice. Seeing as you can only put 3 X factors on each side of the ball, I would say maybe choose 1 or 2 of those guys, put Route Technician on them, and make sure your quarterback has some sort of pass lead. That's a really nice combo in my opinion. Next up is the InOut Elite, better route running and catching on in and out routes. So basically, you're taking your in and out routes and you're making them super OP. This is only available to a couple of wide receivers in the game right now, AB, Jerry Rice, and Marvin Harrison. But you can get in specialist on several other wide receivers. I'm not going to list them all, but basically you need an 85 plus wide receiver. Route running wide receivers can get it at 80 plus, and that's pretty much it. But in specialist does the same thing, but just for in routes. I like in and out elite because you get the inside and you get the outside. And I think people will come to understand that the outside is very reliable this season. Now, all of these right here, you guys can do your own research on the slot apprentice, the streak, actually all these specialists, the streak, post, in, slant, and cross. You can find out which wide receivers are eligible for those. But depending on how your personal scheme goes, you might run a bunch of post routes. You might run a bunch of slants. You might run a bunch of crossers. In that case, find one of these that work for you, get a wide receiver that can use these specialists, and it'll give you better route running, catching, and holding when running those routes. Another one that I like is the curl comeback. Excels at route running, catching, and holding on when running curl and comeback routes. That is really nice. I think the curl and the comeback is going to be really, really good this year. The only 3 wide receivers that can get it at this time is AB, Rice, and Marvin Harrison. Let's move to the defensive side of the ball. These ones are kind of mix and match depending on, which positions you're playing. So linebackers can get some defensive back abilities. Linebackers could also get some defensive end position or defensive line abilities. It all depends on what you're looking for, but I've got a couple of them listed right here. Let's start with Power Specialist. Power Specialist, more dominant pass rush wins when using power moves. Going to be really good against the run. At this point, there's only a few players that can do that. That would be Reggie White, Strahan, and Von Miller. That at this point, especially with the way O-lines are like at, 84 to 89s, depending on who you have, that can be pretty insane. I've heard a lot of talk that these abilities on the defensive ends are absolutely OP. Now, the same thing can be said for another ability called Finesse Specialist, which is right here. It's the same thing, but with finesse moves. And the only player that can get that right now is John Randall. He just had a limited come out, so he's going to be pretty expensive to get to that point, seeing as upgrades don't come out until I think you can't upgrade them with training until I think the next series. I think that's how it works at this point. Next up is Edge Threat. I actually don't think Edge Threat is on this description here, but basically it is what it sounds like. You're going to be a bigger threat from the edge, playing the edge position. The only players that can get that right now are White and Strahan, both left ends. So get creative, see if you can add that. But I've heard that's a pretty OP ability right there. Next up, you've got Secure Tackler, Unfakeable, and Tackle Supreme. Now, Secure Tackler, everybody should know what that is. Basically, you have a really good chance, a really, really high chance of not getting a broken tackle if your player has secure tackle. And then Unfakeable, also something people are very familiar with from last season. Basically, you can't get faked out by ball carriers, which right now, or you can, but a very low chance of it. At this point, Madden, with those jukebox guys and those spin cycle guys, that can be pretty valuable. There is a player that can get both in Tackle Supreme. Tackle Supreme is basically both of those put together, says combined secure tackler and unfakeable. And that's Ryan Shazier once he's upgraded to 90 overall. I would highly suggest getting that on Shaz because that guy could be a really, really big difference maker for your user. Let's move on to defensive backs. Now, I'm going to mention this guy right here, Lurker. This ability may be one of the best in the entire game on defense, and I'm going to tell you why. It says Lurker, ability to make jumping and 180-degree interceptions when in coverage over the middle of the field. That is pretty insane. So you're telling me all of a sudden players with Lurker are pretty much like our users for Madden 19, which I'll admit and everybody admits is really, really overpowered last year. Now being able to do that with Lurker here, spec catch ability on defense, being able to do that in Madden 20 is going to be a really big deal. Now, unfortunately, the requirement for this ability is pretty high. Lurker for linebackers right now is pretty much impossible. You got your field generals, you need to be 95 overall. Your pass coverage needs to be 93 overall. So the requirements of those are pretty steep. But at cornerback, you can get Lurker on any cornerback that is tier 3 or higher. So that's a 90 overall or higher. There is one cornerback in the game that you can get Lurker on right now. I think there's actually two. You can get Lurker on Mel Blount, and you can get Lurker on Stephon Gilmore, right? So if I would actually suggest if you're going to be using either of the two, use your Mel Blount because he's 6'3". If all of a sudden you've got this 6'3", super fast, crazy good cornerback as your user, I can bet you're going to be getting a lot more user interceptions than anybody else in the game because you're going to be able to make, if you combine it with like an ability like, let's say, Acrobat, where you're able to like really jump, kind of like what we saw in Madden 19, and you're able to do like the 180 thing, that's going to be pretty crazy. Now remember, that's only down the middle of the field, but that's where a lot of interceptions happen anyway, and that's where a lot of the user skill comes in anyway. So take that for what it is. There's going to be more players that get Lurker a little bit down the field, but that is a really nice ability. Next up, we've got Man Up. Wins versus any receiver cut in route running and forces knockouts when in man coverage. So basically, you're taking your man coverage guy, making him super OP. The only guy in the game that can get that right now is Stephon Gilmore. Next up, one of my favorite, which I think a lot of people are going to start looking at as we get more cards, is Zoned Out. Forces knockouts when in zone coverage. Excels at knockouts when in zone coverage. I don't know if that's the final extent of what that ability does. I've noticed one guy who does have it in Hitman Harry, Harrison Smith, who is able to get zoned. I think he's got Zoned Out baked into the card. This is a nasty, nasty ability. I've noticed them making better reads in zone coverage, making better breaks in zone coverage with that as well. And I'm not sure if it's just for knockouts, but from my experience playing against that card, Zoned Out is pretty nasty. Between the two, just off of the descriptions, I think that Man Up sounds better, but I've seen a lot of cool stuff with Zoned Out as well. So take that for what it is. Zoned Out is currently available on Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, and Hitman Harry. Next up is going to be Acrobat. Acrobat uses diving swats and catches to increase range for pass breakups and picks. That one's pretty big. I would say that's a kind of a must-have on any quarterback that's going to be an X-Factor dude. That can be placed on pretty much any defensive back that's 85 or higher, except for support safeties that need to be 90 plus or higher as far as overall. But being able to get that extra distance to make a play is definitely super important. Next up, we got tip drill. I don't remember where it is on this document, but you guys know tip drill. It's basically a higher chance at interceptions off a tipped pass. That's pretty good. And it goes on a lot of different players, so I'll let you guys look that up yourself. But as far as I could tell, those were probably the best abilities you can get today on players that can have the ability to get those abilities right now in Madden. Guys, it's like 4:30 in the morning, so I'm going to go to bed. Sorry if the last part of the video was a little bit slow, but I wanted to give you guys an example of which cards to maybe target and which abilities you want to add to your team with those cards. My God, guys, it's getting late. I'm going to wrap this up, guys. This has been the Director. Thanks so much for joining me. If you enjoyed this, please hit us up with a like and sub. Really appreciate you, dudes. Thank you so much for helping us reach 5,000 subs. Here's to another 5,000, hopefully maybe by the end of the year. And we're going to keep cranking out these videos and coming back at you guys with MUT Force. Guys, thanks again so much for joining me. We'll catch you guys next time. And as always, stay frosty.
Last chance, 4th and long, finding the will to bolt up. Bundle up, cause you know we stay frosty. I take my frosty chocolate, vanilla, or swirl. Mutt Master YouTuber, come on, let's give it a whirl. Mutt Madden Twitch streamer, put the snowman to shame. Staying frosty's the only way we stay alive in this game. They're reffing the match, directors directing the game. Scared of my underdog team, you know them gods will be slain. Stay frosty.